Paintmarine's bookshelf. Today I'm going to go over the ebook short story, The Greater Evil, written by Peter, and I'm going to take a guess here, Fehervari, I believe is how you say it. But yeah, so it's a short story that primarily focuses around a Tau expedition in the search of a water caste ambassador that has gone missing. So it's like I said, a short story, so this should be a pretty quick little review of it. But be warned, big warning, spoilers. I'm gonna go into the story, and also spoilers if you have not read Crisis of Faith, because there's a little bit in this story that they don't necessarily connect, but there are certain things happening that you haven't really seen happen too much in Tau stories before. Yeah, I'm trying not to get too into it until, in case people that don't want spoilers can stop now and go. But yeah, so if you haven't read The Crisis of Faith, and it's kind of a major spoiler, this connection. So I would say, unfortunately, I don't watch the video as much as I want people to watch these videos. If you haven't read Crisis of Faith, or you haven't read this, or you could even say, if you have read this but you haven't read Crisis of Faith, maybe turn it off now, because you could potentially spoil a big plot development in Crisis of Faith. Alright, well, so all that warning, spoilers, whatever, that being said, let's get into this. Now, the greater evil, obviously kind of like a play on words, because we all know the greater good, for the greater good with the Tau. So, what's that about? And we'll find out as we get a little bit further on. But, I liked this story, and I didn't like this story. I liked it mainly because of the fact that the expedition that goes out, while it has your Tau leaders, there's a Seeker who is an ethereal caste, and he's called the Seeker, which his character was pretty cool. He had his staff weapon, the things that it could do, because he thrusts it into this enemy's skull, and then the spines on it shot out or something. I was this ethereal, he sounded pretty sweet, close combat, badass, which, of course, the books and the game don't translate that at all. And on top of it, I saw something in another group, they were reading Firecast, and the guard were talking about how accurate the Tau were. And in the game, it was Tau hit on a 4+, so it's a 50-50 shot for Fire Warriors to hit. That's not that great. But then it's but if you think about it, it kind of translates, because, Space Marines are shooting, on a 3+, so it's someone said it was a 68 point whatever % chance, and so when they're that close, that's actually a pretty big deal. However, guard translates to about this, I think they're on a 4+ too, so, I don't know. But anyway, I really like, though, how, they had the ethereal, and Morris, I say ethereal, he wasn't really, an ethereal in the sense that we've come to know him so far in some stories, because he goes by the Seeker, and he's, he's a fact-finding mission, trying to discover, just what's going on exactly, and it was almost, I don't want to say psychic, but it was almost kind of like he was a psychic, just because of the fact that he felt drawn to this expedition, and his purpose, and I don't know how else really to explain just how he just explained everything very, very much like you would think a psyker or somebody would be oh, this is my destiny, and I feel it is pulling me this way, or I feel the destiny is speaking to me, or whatever. I don't know. But anyway, I thought that was pretty cool. But then you had some Fire Warrior characters, and some water caste. Now the Fire Warriors in this were actually in charge of some Guvesa auxiliaries that were the primary force on this, because the whole point is they've lost contact to this ambassador. So the expedition was sent out to find him, and he was on a, I can't remember what they call it, was it the rat's nest or something? I think it was the rat's nest. There's a bunch of names for it, but I think one of them was a rat's nest, and it's in a system around like a gas giant or something, but there's this orbiting station that's just kept growing and growing over the millennia, just got like this huge, almost like a space Hulk of just garbage essentially. And for the most part, the Imperium citizens there have been very, I mean, they've not had any problems with the Imperium, but yeah, anyway, either way. So they go there, and they get like at some point they get a transmission from the missing ambassador, and they're kind of like, is this really him? Is it a fake or whatever? But anyway, they continue on, and the whole time there's one guard member, guardsman, Guvesa, who used to be a guardsman. He's a Guvesa now, and his name was Voil, and he's struggling with some internal demons, quite literally. Because how he was found, he was on a boarding mission. There was like a derelict vessel. They went in to try to find out what happened, and it was basically infested with like demons. He was touched by one. Excuse me. He was touched by one, and essentially that's like kind of started the seed, the root of his corruption in a way. Yeah, so then he struggles with these nightmares and things ever since then, after he was liberated by the Tau, as he puts it. But yeah, so his character was also pretty interesting, and the Seeker notes how he knows there's something to do with this Voil character. He can't quite put his finger on it, but there's something up with him, and he doesn't know. He has a purpose in this expedition, this mission, but he doesn't know what it is yet. So that was pretty interesting. But some interesting facts I want to bring up real quick. I'm not, like I said, I'm pretty new to a lot of the lore, so I'm not sure if there's been any decent descriptions of the Guvesa, the human auxiliaries, before. And it's kind of fitting because I just recently converted up a squad, so that way I figure, well, if I do this, it'll help me better differentiate from my other squad of just regular Tau Fire Warriors. So I thought, well, I'll do a Guvesa Auxiliaries squad. And it sounds like from the description that I kind of hit it on the mark with at least how this author has described them, and is also going to help me in the painting, where I'll go over the description. I'll tell you, like, I'm going to vary it a little bit differently than exactly the way he puts it here. So the first part is, I believe it was the Seeker was speaking in this, like kind of an internal dialogue, describing his first impressions of Voil and what Voil looks like. So, even by the standards of his species, with their jutting snouts and curled ears, Voil was ugly. Like all the expedition's Guvesa, he was shaven-headed, and skin was stained blue to mirror his liberator's complexion. But such contributed... I can't even see that now, huh? We could not soften... There, alright. Anyway, could not soften the brutish cast of his features. So, main takeaways there. Shaved heads, blue skin. So, it's kind of like they do that. And it says in this expedition, so it's not necessarily like a Tau-wide practice that the Guvesa have, but at least the Guvesa in this expedition do that. They shave their heads and dye their skin blue. Which I thought was very interesting, very cool as far as lore goes. So this is where my main difference is going to come as far as when I come to paint mine. I'm not going to do them all with the blue. I think mine are going to be like, there will be more devout Guvesa in the squad necessarily, I guess you could say. But the idea is I'm going to do more of kind of like a Braveheart war paint with like blue streaks and that kind of thing, and not like a solid blue and just like I have an Andorian Star Trek reference if you get it, human walking around, but kind of more like a war paint, kind of almost like the Kroot have like their painted on, or I don't know if they're tattooed, but there's I've seen people do Kroot and even some artwork with Kroot with like the tribal pattern type of stuff. It would be kind of similar like that, but basically, like I said, like kind of like Braveheart. I may do one that's all blue, just show like he's super devout, but it won't be like the whole squad wide thing. So I think that'll be kind of neat, kind of a little flavor to them. And then the next is they wore lighter variants of the Fire Warrior's armor, retaining the breastplates and the shoulder pads, but lacking the contoured plates that sheathed their superiors' limbs. Their helmets were fitted with tinted lenses that covered their eyes, but left their faces bare. So that's awesome because essentially all I did is I just took the Astra Militarum guardsmen and just took off like what was it, the winged skull on the top and slapped a Tau antenna on the side. I shaved off like the one kind of ear muff part, put a Tau antenna on there, and that was the helmet. It would be kind of nice if I could put like some sort of colored visor in, but that's neither here nor there. But so awesome that I was able to do that, and then I kept the regular guardsman chest plate, even though it says that they had the breastplates and shoulder pads, but I was kind of like, well, they're human, so their anatomy will probably be a little bit different because maybe Tau chest, they don't have like pectoral muscles like humans do. So I kept that shape, and then I also kept the regular guardsman shoulder pads because again, like maybe our shoulder, because Tau models, they look very like kind of narrow and slim in general, and so I was like, well, humans, like maybe we're just a little more rounded in our shoulders and stuff like that. So I kept that together, and it was also kind of a little bit easier to convert, cutting the rifles and drilling the hands so I could have the pulse rifles in their hands. And then I took the Tau Fire Warrior legs though with kind of the plating on the thighs, and I cut their bovine style legs off and took the feet from the guardsmen and put them on there. So I think they turned out great. I'm finally, they're the next thing up on my to-do list, painting list, even though I've got a million things to do. But anyway, yeah, so I like that. That was a really cool kind of description, and I'm glad that by the armor description, it sounds like I kind of went the right route, because I did think at one time, like, well, maybe I'll just do kind of everything I said, but instead for the helmets, maybe I'll keep the Fire Warrior helmets and just, they're human underneath, because you'll see the hands and the legs with the normal feet. But I decided to go with the Guardsman helmets instead, and I'm glad that I did, because like I said, it sounds like I kind of hit the mark as far as this author's concerned. So anyway, there was one of the Tau Fire Warrior leaders. His name, well, I can't remember his Tau name, but he was also known as Stormlight, and his squad he referred to as the Stormlit, which I thought was a kind of a cool name for a squad, the Stormlit. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'll transfer that over to my own little kind of lore. Maybe my squad is the Stormlit before this story occurs. Because after this story, there's not much left of them. In fact, there were no survivors. So, continuing on, they go there, they meet the ambassador at the hangar bay. He's got this contingent of humans or something with him. They're not really sure what they are. They're kind of like, they're definitely augmented, or they have heavy armor. They're not really sure. They're humans, but they have a very mechanical life to them. Anyway, so they're there to escort them to to the leaders of the group that the ambassador has struck up this deal with. But they're hours away because the station is huge, and the only working space dock they had was on the outer edges of it. So they said something like it's going to take them like 3 hours or more, or something like that, to get to where the leaders are. So they get on this convoy, they start heading there, and they get ambushed by these rebels that don't agree with it. But during that ambush, Voyle notices that the humans that are attacking them look pretty worse for wear. They're like, they've been exposed. Like, I kind of like, as I was reading, like, I imagine like somebody like in any sci-fi where like they come across like these, like, I don't know, humans or whatever that have been exposed to like lots of radiation or nuclear style like poisoning, where they've got like radiation sickness and sores, and they're just like they're dying, but they're just barely hanging on, type of a thing. Um, but anyway, during this fight, one of the walkers, the warden, it is a female of sorts, gets wounded, and he notices something underneath the armored plating that doesn't look human. So he goes to another one of the walkers that was taken down, and opens it up and discovers, oh, these are something else, some abomination. So essentially, they come to find out that and it never really comes out, but it's some kind of a demon has taken control of the spaceport, the humans. He's disfigured them and stuff. I'm going to turn my phone off. It keeps going off. And they describe like tentacles coming out of their mouth, and they're just all kind of disfigured, extra arms and all kinds of stuff going on. And so yeah, and for a minute there, I had to take a second, because I was like, well, maybe they were a gene stealer cult, but they weren't. Because when he has a flashback to some of the time when he was on the ship, it was definitely things coming out of this black abyss, as he called it, and the fact that, he could hear the voices in his head. I thought, well, maybe that could be like, what are they called? The Prime and Gene Stealer, is his Gene Stealer Prime or something, like his influence, but definitely probably not that. But maybe that's what they were intending to be. I don't know, actually, when I think about it. Because maybe the void, the darkness that they were coming out of wasn't really like out of the warp, or the immaterium. It was, whatever infiltrating power or something that gene stealers had. So, that's interesting, because when I think about it, they were, I don't know. They do describe one creature, though, that touches Voyle, and that's how he starts getting, like, kind of the infected. So maybe, I don't know. I'm all over the place now. I'm going to stick with it. There are demons. Although I kind of like the idea of the gene stealer thing. It does sound kind of neat. Because, like, some of their interactions with, like, these humans that they didn't really get to see, and they were wearing purple robes and all this and that and stuff. But, I don't know. And then they kept referring to their, not the greater good, but they kept calling it the greatest good. You gotta, like, we've seen the way of the greatest good. So maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll have to go back and look at that, because I really think it will boil down to that first description of the tentacled monster thing that first touched Voyle, and kind of, but he kept referring to his soul, so I don't know. Like I said, alright, let's get past this speed bump that I've got myself on. So they're definitely demons. I'm pretty sure of it now, because of the references to his soul being tugged at and all that. So they're demons, not gene stealers, although that would have been kind of a cool thing, to see some gene stealers actually try to steal Tau genes instead of, you always hear the human thing. But yeah, anyway. So he notices it, he calls back, and that they're not really human, and this whole thing happens. Like, basically, the whole firefight happens. They try to escape. They're trying to get back to the ship, and pretty much everybody dies except the Seeker. He has 2 Kroot bodyguard, and there's one fire warrior. I think it was Stormlight was the only other one to survive, except for his fire warrior counterpart, who was in control of the second auxiliary squad that they had, but she gets, no, I'm sorry, it wasn't her. I think it was the Watercast. Yeah, it was the Watercast ambassador who, she survives, but she gets taken captive by the warden, and taken back. And basically, she finds more Tau water casts that were in the initial envoy um, that are still alive, but they're about to show her the greatest good, which is this demon. I can't remember what he referred to his name as, but they're going to introduce him to the something alpha, which that's the other thing. Maybe are they called alphas or primes? I don't know, but that name too, like using the word alpha really makes it seem gene stealer. I don't know enough about gene stealers honestly to see if I could. I don't know, but anyway, then this water cast friend of hers that she had known from the past is like, oh, and her husband was the main ambassador who he was killed during the whole uncovery of this deception. And she was like, well, I grieve for him, but he is with the greatest good now. And but she's like, but and she's referring to this alpha. We see him as a father, and you'll come to see him as a father as well. And then she's like, oh, and let me introduce you to my son. And this, very largish, small boy who she says is only 3 Tau years old, comes over and she takes down his robe and she sees like this disfigured Tau, gnarled, boyish face, but with tentacles and stuff coming out. And so, yeah, something's going on with that. So, they're all corrupted by something, yeah, I guess. That's why, originally I was like, man, are they demons? And the reason, so this is where the crisis of faith thing came in, and why I initially was saying it was a spoiler, is because if they're demons, it kind of goes back to one of the water casts that was possessed when he touched the warp, or not the warp engine, but I can't remember the thing. It's the something field, the Gether field, I think it is, that keeps the demons from coming on board the ships and stuff when they're transversing the warp. The reason why I say there's a connection is it seems like they're trying to bring more. As before, it was kind of like the tower untouched by the warp, and not really like the demons really gave them no mind. And especially with them taking human auxiliaries who are definitely influenced by demons, the warp, and possessions and stuff like that, bringing that frailty into the mix, bringing that exposure into the mix, to where these things are starting like, oh, what are these Tau things? Because in Christ of Faith, the main demon protagonist in there talks about how they're kind of like these half souls. Like, a soul's better than no soul, but these are like little half souls. But if he gets enough of them, maybe he'll win favor of this greater demon he's trying to win over. I think the greater demon being Zeech. But anyway, but now I'm like, again, I don't know, I feel like I may have to go back and reread this. It's very interesting, though. We'll have to look into that for sure. But yeah, so that's kind of how that went. But anyway, so then you have the Seeker, his crew, and the Fire Warrior are on their own, and they basically, the Seeker's like, because the ship takes off so that it doesn't get captured or infested. So they're like, well, we're going to stay here and basically survive and do a fact-finding mission, which, and that's kind of where the story is left off, is you've got 4 survivors plus the water cast ambassador, who's technically a survivor, but we don't know where it's going from there. So it'll be interesting to see if this is the start of a bigger story that's coming, or if this is just going to be a standalone cliffhanger, or if there'll be more short stories that tie into it. I'm very interested in that. Especially now, like I said, I'm going to have to reread. Maybe my comprehension wasn't good enough that I didn't pick up that they were supposed to be gene stealers the whole time instead of demons. Because there's a lot that can kind of go either way now that I'm analyzing it more. But yeah, so definitely a good read. Like I said, my only kind of thing that I didn't like was I wasn't really the biggest fan of the demon thing. But now that I'm thinking back that it could be gene stealers, I'm like, oh, well, you know what? Maybe that wasn't so bad. I mean, that was kind of good. And only because we're just not used to it with Tau yet. It was a little... I did find it interesting in the Crisis of Faith. However, it was a little weird. But I do like how it seemed like the whole reason for it even being anything here was because Voyle, who had been touched by some sort of demonic whatever, seemed to be like the weak link in the chain that maybe he's brought this attention to the Tau Empire from the warp that has never really occurred before. So that's why I like that aspect of it. If that is in fact the fact that they are demons. If they're not and they're gene stealers, well, that brings a whole other thing. Because as we know, like Farsight definitely sees the Tyranid threat and has kind of been kicked to the side as far as the rest of the Tau are concerned, or main Tau are concerned. But yeah, so I definitely suggested. I think it was like, I don't know, $4.99 American on Black Library, but definitely worth a good read. But yeah. So please read it and let me know what you think. As far as, did I just misunderstand? Was it supposed to be Gene Stealers the whole time, or is it in fact demons like my initial thought was? Like, I'm kind of 50-50 now. I'm definitely gonna read it again because I'm like, you know what? What did I read? But yeah, so definitely pick it up, take a look, and we'll see you next time.